Hello. No,
Oh,
I'm
that's
not flipping.
incredibly loud.
Sorry.
Ow. Yep. No, I'm now deaf. Let's do the deaf episode. Can I turn you down on my computer? Probably yes.
Soz about that.
That's okay. I'm only bleeding from one ear. Have you started?
Welcome. You bastard. Welcome to Naughty Kids, the podcast where we explore the best of that halcyon age when things were better, dungarees were worse, and the Spice Girls ruled with an iron fist.
It is, of course, the late 90s and early noughties.
I'm Josh Hinton, 1994 to present.
And I'm Joey Hart, 1994 to...
Fully understand the meaning of life itself, one must first look deep into the abyss.
This week, we're slumping down on the sofa of memory and tuning in to the world of late 90s and early noughties TV.
Perfect, I think that works well.
That's very good. Thank you to the Abyss for that guest appearance.
Thanks to the Abyss for guest starring on today's show. More
Always a
later.
pleasure to have you with us. Thank you ever so much, Abyss, bringing
didn't
depth
want
to
to,
proceedings.
We didn't want to avoid that.
Hey, I also made a pun there. I joined in.
Sorry,
Come on.
I was too busy. It was my own pun. I was
Pun
rather
wars have begun already.
spaced out.
I'm taking my policy these days is to just hold silence while you do this.
Oh, okay. You've got to respond, otherwise I'm
Just-
just sat in a room telling puns to myself, which is not something I don't do.
I was going to say,
And not
the
something
walls can
I'm
be
not
very
saying I
appreciative.
don't enjoy. I do. I
Yeah.
do enjoy it. It's what
Yeah,
I do in
exactly.
the
I
car
mean,
when I'm driving.
The problem is, they come so thick and fast that if I laugh and go "Grr" after every one, then I just spend a good 5 minutes going "Grr."
That could in itself be, very good listening.
It could. It's almost becoming a new feature at the start of our podcast. We've almost, the last couple of episodes, we've just started with a flurry of wild puns. I don't know whether we should codify this, and maybe the listeners, of whom there are at least some, should inform us whether they would like a flunpurry.
A flunpurry. To make a delicious flunpurry, first start with a thick base of ridiculous comments. Mix in a large handful of references nobody will get, and flourish with a cherry of fond memories mixed in with... Anyway, yeah, something like that. I ran out of wits there. What happened there? It
started great. I thought you were going to end really strongly when you said, a cherry of. I was like, and here it comes, the punchline, and blah, 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 blah.
The pun.
But I liked it
shall I?
nevertheless. Exactly.
There we go. That worked.
So there we are. A pun flurry at the beginning. Yes, I quite like that. I quite like the term pun flurry.
So we've already.
This week.
Yeah. Go on.
This week, we're discussing television, which was back. We can do a back in our day, can't we? Because that's the whole point of this is living the past. And back in our day, there were only some channels, 4, 5 when we were really small.
I remember 5 on the television.
Yeah, I think about 5.
There was 1. 2 was the second one I seem to remember. ITV sat at a firm number 3. At number 4, it was Channel 4, followed by sweet number 5.
Just ITV there being a bit hipster.
Being a bit hipster, having its own thing.
We're not going to be Channel 3. We're going to be ITV.
So you had the BBC one, the BBC 2, the ITV, Channel 4, and then Channel 5. I think was just called Channel 5, or Chanel.
Yeah, it still is.
Chanel number 5, as it likes to be known.
And it was you did need the Radio Times, didn't you? One of my earliest memories actually of any variety is sitting on the armchair in my parents' house. I was 5. Also my house.
Sitting in the armchair of my large spacious mansion that I bought at the age of 4.
In my penthouse flat, and my maid stood at my side and she said to me, "Sir, what would you like to watch on the telly?" No, but I do. I remember sitting there in the armchair with my mum next to me, flipping through the Radio Times, going, well, 4:10, there's the Teletubbies, and at 9 p.m. there's Die Hard, and what would you like to watch? And
those were the 2 options for
they were.
evening. Dearest, is it Teletubbies or Die Hard again this evening?
Would you like to be entertained or scarred, my dear son? And yes, it was just a lot more analog. And I remember that my TV back then was square for a start, and it was made of black thick plastic, and it was about the size of a postage stamp, and you could just about determine that there were people on it if you were looking carefully. It was very exciting.
It was. Televisions were always bigger going backwards than they were ever big side to side, top to bottom.
That's very true. That's true. If you turned them on their side, you'd have had more surface area facing you than was actually there. I mean, I suppose it's because, they were tubes, weren't they? They were cathode rays.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they needed the space, didn't they?
It was busy shooting electrons directly at your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what needed to happen. I remember just before, or rather when everyone was just starting to get flat screens, because they were just becoming affordable to mere mortals. We got the television from my auntie's house, which they were slightly more wealthy than we are. They owned a huge, great big farm, and they gifted us their old television, which was a cathode ray tube television, but it was about 20-inch, maybe more, 30-inch television. And it was just colossal in how far back it went. And so, of course, you had to have the telly in the corner of the room, because if you had it in the middle of the room, you simply couldn't go through the room. So you tucked it into the corner, and the ray kind of sat behind it.
That's right, yes, because you said flat screen, but what you meant was widescreen, because they weren't flat for a long time, were they?
No, exactly. This was a great, huge, big thing, and it was far bigger than the one we'd had before. But it didn't it didn't have a built-in video player. You had to have a standalone little video player, which made the best noises. Did you record things off the telly?
Yeah,
we did. Record programs off the telly, and you'd put the thing in, and you'd know the exact right noises it should make, and you knew the exact right noises it shouldn't make when you put a videotape in. And then you'd hear as it starts to spin up, and you're like, I'm at the end, I need to rewind. And it'd speed up all the way back through the tape.
Right. That's right.
And you're like, now we're back at the beginning. We lived on a world of analog sounds.
It was fun, wasn't it? They were pleasing.
If you go back to the beginning of a YouTube video now, you just like that, and you're at the beginning. There's no kind of theatre involved. There's no.
You're not aware of levers and cogs and wheels turning, are you?
Exactly.
I remember ours was. We got most of our stuff in general secondhand at that stage, and I think it was my grandparents' old video player that we got, and again it was made of black plastic. It was thick and heavy, and it was like I remember arriving with them whenever they brought it to us and being like, we have a video player, we can watch things that aren't scheduled by the government.
And you could sense the expense and quality of that kind of product.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't at all quality. It was, but it lasted us a good few years. But the main thing I remember about it was that every so often it would. I don't really, even now really understand the sort of technical reasons behind this. But you'd develop snow on the picture. You'd be watching a video that was perfectly fine, but it would just start to have static in the image. And the way to fix it was just to go and slap it on the top.
Bang!
Walk over it. You did. You just walk over it, whack, and hit it really hard on the top. And I know it's become a bit of a joke, a bit of a sort of like, oh, that's how you fix it. But it genuinely was. You whacked it, and it would go away. And I have no idea what the explanation for that was. I suppose a build-up of static electricity inside it that you somehow encouraged to earth or something. I don't know.
It could well have been that simple. That actually you didn't need to hit it at all. If you just gently touched it,
it might have fixed itself.
Solved the same problem. I don't know. As a qualified engineer, no idea what's happening there. It's something electromagnetic or not. Could be. Who knows? It could be a loose wire that when you hit it, it wiggles slightly and it gets into the right position.
That could well have been the thing as well. But
we'll never know.
Yeah. We never will. And there was always the thing of, if you rented a video from Blockbusters, which we did. We're getting off TV a bit here, but...
Middle class. My goodness.
Where did you rent yours from?
We never rented anything. The bin man? We were happy.
You didn't rent anything?
We watched the same video. We played it backwards and that was good enough.
Television. The actual television itself, not just what you could put beneath the television in the form of a video, but the programs on television.
Let's focus our gaze upwards about 6 or 7 inches.
Yes, look up, children, at the magic box, which entertains and informs.
Flickers to life with bands of colour.
Wiggly, 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 wiggly.
That. So, when did you had television wheeled in? I'm going to go off topic again here, but staying on topic in. Obviously, in school, when you had to watch a video.
Yes.
The largest television I'd ever seen, on the top of the most wobbly trolley I've ever seen.
They looked like they were made out of pig iron, didn't they? Those televisions.
Where did they come from? Who? I mean, were they military
Where did they
grade
go?
televisions or something?
Where did they come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
Well,
No, exactly.
And they were wheeled into the classroom, and everyone was like, "This is going to be good." And then some 1980s, documentary.
Some man who was more hair than human would appear on the television.
It was almost
igneous rocks.
Adam Hart Davis, I seem to remember, was often on there.
Oh yes, I'd forgotten about him.
What the Romans did for us. Do you remember that?
Oh, what the Romans did for us. That was
That
brilliant.
program. It was.
I just love how the whole premise of that program was: you, the viewer, think the Romans were rubbish and did nothing. I will disabuse you of this fact. When in fact nobody thinks that.
What the
No one
Romans
thought
ever
that.
done for us? Well, Adam Hart Davis will tell us. He is the antidote to Python.
Absolutely. That was very good, wasn't it? And it was basically like the Romans created a fully functioning society that then totally collapsed when they left. Although
Yes, exactly.
I'm
And
now
we
aware
went into
that
the Dark Ages.
the Dark Ages, but at least they were British Dark Ages. No parallels to anything else that's going on at the moment. But
Is there a Dark Age going on elsewhere?
well, we've just abandoned the
Every 12
civilized
hours
society.
we go into the Dark Ages. That's nighttime, that's what that is.
This must be stopped. We must instill civilization at all times.
Have to run around the Earth really quickly.
Exactly. Yeah, but no. But is that possible? Could you?
Yes, you
Could
can.
you fly in constant
outfly the
daylight?
sun. Yes, of course you can.
That's very cool.
It takes
well,
about
how fast does?
It takes about 8 hours to fly. No, it doesn't. It takes about 12 hours to fly around the Earth.
What? No, it must take longer than that, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. Jeremy
Yes,
Clarkson
it
did
does,
it,
because
but he did it and he cheated because he used Concorde because it was in the 90s.
that's not cheating. That's just a fast plane.
I know, but you can't do it anymore, so therefore it's cheating.
The fact that it was going to break at some point in the future meant it was invalid at the time.
Exactly.
Right. But
Yes, you
I
can.
suppose that's true because it took when I flew to Hong Kong it took 12 hours and that probably is on the other. Well, no, but that's the other side. But that's flying quite slowly. Is that what you're saying?
You only have to fly to the other side of the world. You don't have to go all the way back round, otherwise you're back in nighttime again.
But you said it takes 12 hours to fly around the world.
Yes, that's yes, to the other side.
Oh, to the other side. Right. Yes.
Yes, because if you fly 360, you end up back where you were.
Well, yes, I am aware of that. I was just challenging the statement you made that it takes 12 hours to fly around the Earth, and I was like,
if you
surely
wanted
not.
to stay
Anyway,
daytime where you are, that doesn't work. You can't do that. Unless
right,
you go
so you want to fly. What speed do you have to fly at, basically, to hover? How fast do you have to be going to match the speed of the Earth and hover?
Here we go. We are thoroughly on topic. How fast does the Earth rotate?
5 miles an hour.
I think it's quicker than that.
10 miles an hour.
It's roughly 1,000 miles an hour.
So you'd have to be flying at 1,000 miles an hour to stay in place over one spot.
Yeah, interestingly, Google tells me that the Earth rotates once every 23 hours and 56 minutes.
Wait, no, but is that right? Because actually, when you're stationary, you're travelling at that 1,000 miles an hour, aren't you? Because you're on the Earth. So we are currently travelling at 1,000 miles an hour. And if you add 1,000 miles an hour in a plane,
you have to go back.
You're actually doing
1,000 miles an hour. Yes. So it depends on. So what we're moving on to here is relativity, not special relativity, but relativity. Yeah. So it depends. Where are you measuring your inertial frame of reference? So are you saying that
I'm saying I want to be flying.
Of the Earth is a fixed point, and that's rotating. And are you saying relative to the axis of the Earth, you wish to remain the same radius distance away from it without any angular momentum, angular velocity?
I'm going to be honest and say I don't know. What I want to happen is, let's imagine I'm flying in a plane. Mm-hmm. It's moving forwards. If I stuck my head out the window, my hair would ruffle. Mm-hmm. But beneath me, the same spot, let's say Luton, is there, and it's not moving away from me. I'm not moving away from it because I'm going the same speed as the Earth. Is that possible?
Yeah, well, yes, but you have to be several thousand miles from the Earth in geostationary orbit for that to happen.
Because the atmosphere changes things?
Well, you can hover in a helicopter if you want to. That exists. Hovering things exist. If you
but why does it not work? Why could I do it? Why could I do it up in space but not in the atmosphere. Why is that?
Because the air's in the way. So if you're in space, you are technically travelling a lot faster, but relative to a point on Earth, you are stationary.
Yes.
If that's what.
But why is that the case? Why if I then just pull the radius down and end up in the atmosphere, can I suddenly not hover while moving forwards?
Well, Newton explained this very well when he was talking about gravity and how orbits work. So if you imagine you live on flat land, imagine the Earth is flat.
Yes.
We all know
this goes on for some time, and is extremely tedious.
And so it will stay above a point in the Earth. We haven't considered that the Earth is rotating in any of these discussions up until this point.
I see.
Does that help?
Massively.
I mean,
has melted out of my ears.
To answer your earlier question, which is, can I hover over Luton? Yes, just by a helicopter.
Okay, jolly good. Thank you ever so much. And with that, back to television, back to the studio. Walking with Dinosaurs. That's what I want to propose.
I think that's an excellent proposition. I rewatched this recently, so I not only have fond childhood memories, I have current manhood memories.
Oh, my sweet manhood memories. Yuck. That sounds horrible. That's adulthood, maybe slightly better.
Adulthood. Well, okay. I consider myself an adult.
What are your adulthood memories of Walking with Dinosaurs?
Well, shall we start with childhood memories?
We should probably start with childhood memories.
Since we're musing on the
noughties.
thoughts of the late 90s and indeed early noughties, exactly.
Yes.
I loved that programme. I have to say, it's probably my favourite television programme on the television as a child.
It was quite revolutionary, wasn't it? Because, I mean, CGI, we sort of grew up with CGI, as in CGI grew up alongside us, didn't it? Because Toy Story came out when we were very small, and that was one of the first proper Pixar films, wasn't it? And
I think it came
and
out
when you watch Toy Story now,
year.
I mean, it doesn't look awful, but you can really see how far things have come. And Walking with Dinosaurs was probably one of the first uses of CGI. So maybe not first, but at least one of the first most popular uses of CGI to kind of enable you to feel like you were photorealistically watching something that is impossible for you to watch.
For those people who've never watched the BBC's Walking with Dinosaurs series, it's modelled after the nature documentary style of filmmaking, and so several of the shots are filmed as if there is a person with a camera filming these animals from a distance. These animals are dinosaurs, of course, and occasionally you get spray from their faces as they run past, or a bit of spit on the lens of the camera, which all adds to the realism. And there is a narrator voiceover saying, "And now we can see this herd of Diplodocus." He called them Diplodocus instead of Diplodocuses. I don't know why. Anyway, this herd
I've always liked Diplodocus better.
I think it sounds great. This herd of Diplodocus with their swishy swish tails are plodding along, plod plod. They're all 30 tons, and look how big they are, swish swish, whatever it was.
I always used to listen to that, being quite small and not really having much of a sense of how big anything was. I always used to listen to that. They'd be like, it's X meters long, and try and figure out how big that was. And I always wanted dinosaurs to be bigger than they were. And so I remember I decided in my head that a T-Rex was the length of the distance from my classroom in school to the very end of the school field, which was a long way.
That's
probably
big
something
dinosaur.
in the region of sort of 200, 300 meters. I was like, that's how big a dinosaur was.
So not the 9 to 12 meters that they probably were, which is still colossal. Thing is,
yes, they were.
Because you hear that number and you go, okay, 12 meters long, that sounds quite long. And you think, well, it's half a swimming pool. Actually, swimming pools aren't that long. I can swim that length. But no, it is colossal. It is monstrously big. Because most people aren't even 2 meters long.
Yes, it's many people like that. I remember there was a thing at the National History Museum, also when I was about this age of watching Walking with Dinosaurs, where they had an animatronic T-Rex, which was sort of advertised as having very, very primitive AI, and that it would sort of react to stimulus in the room in a sort of semi-realistic way. Is it? Okay. It must have just been new then. And I was so excited about this. We queued for ages and ages and ages. When we finally got in front of it, I just, in my head, I'd built it up to like it was basically a real T-Rex that would behave like a real T-Rex would. And of course, it just sort of,
yes, its legs firmly planted in the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was the power that this kind of had over you. I mean, obviously, there is a what's the word I'm looking for here? Stereotype that small boys all just kind of go through the dinosaur phase, which is kind of true. But Walking with Dinosaurs did something. It really brought it to life in a way that fueled that kind of manic obsession with dinosaurs that kids seem to have.
I mean, just critiquing the program, it was very well done. Half the shots were CGI reconstructions of dinosaurs, done in a way we'd never seen. This was based on very up-to-date science at the time, which said dinosaurs didn't stand, T-Rex didn't stand upright with his tail dragging along the ground. He was more horizontal. He looked more like a bird. He moved quickly. And then the other half of the shots were puppets of their head or their foot on a carcass or whatever it was. And it was real, so it looked real, and it was fantastic. It was absolutely
And the third element, of course, that we haven't mentioned is the gut-wrenching, heart-pulling stories they constructed around these these dinosaurs.
I did not
Big
pick up
Al,
on that as a child.
Didn't you? Flipping heck. There was a special they did. There was like a whole episode, quite a long episode, called Big Al. It was about an
The Ballad
Allosaurus.
of Big Al.
The Ballad of Big Al. Well, that should give you the key, shouldn't it? Give you the hint. And it was like, it made King Lear look like the Chucklevision. It was just like,
he was the
honestly,
runt of the litter. He then broke his. No, he had several incidents where I think he's got his jaw was broken at one point. He then broke his toe during a fight, or he just tripped over a rock or something. It was insignificant, and he couldn't then quite catch the dinosaur he needed to, and so he starved to death and
slowly died. Yeah. Oh man. And
but there was the same story every episode.
There was. I remember ending with him with like his face lying on the ground, it raining on his face as he slowly died. And yeah, the T-Rex episode that every small boy was like T-Rex, T-Rex, T-Rex. The T-Rex was defending her young from an ankylosaurus that mashed her knee with its tail, and then she slowly died over the next 10 minutes for your entertainment as well. It was awful.
Yes, because the narrator's like, and if she doesn't get up from this, her young will surely die, and then she doesn't, and they die, and everyone dies, and that's just the end.
The producers chose this. This isn't a real dinosaur. The producers could have made it differently.
Ione and I watched them about a year ago, and we watched them all the way through, I think it's 6 episodes. And every single episode starts with, here's a dinosaur that's going to die. Here's how it dies.
That's true. And a lot of them they film them set them right at the end of the particular period. So there's about to be a mass extinction, or like they film. Don't they even have the meteorite hitting the Earth?
They do in the last episode.
Yeah, and all that stuff. It's very tragic. I mean, considering that these things dominated the Earth for millions of years, they could have just had dinosaur lives a long and happy life. Some of them would have done.
Set it 1 year earlier, just 1 year. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Exactly, fine, absolutely fine. They had no need to see that happen, did they?
It's as if somebody went. There was a meeting, a gathering of executives, and one of them went, "What if people think this is real? What if people think there are still dinosaurs about? I think we should kill them off at the end of every episode, just so that nobody goes. Can I go see? Oh no, they're all dead. It's okay. I can't go see them.
There's not a Polynesian island with dinosaurs all over it somewhere.
Exactly.
It was wonderful though. It was brilliant. And speaking of Chucklevision, that is a good segue because that was also on the list, and that's the absolute opposite end of the scale. In that, even as a small child, I found Chucklevision terrifying.
Okay,
did you watch
I'm of
Chucklevision?
an opposite opinion.
Okay.
Even as an adult, I find it enjoyable.
Really interesting. Give your side of the story, and then I shall give mine.
So I was a regular.
We should probably explain it. Explain it as well.
So Chucklevision was 2 and occasionally 3 brothers from the same family.
3?
Yes, 3. Okay,
third one?
It mainly follows 2 brothers called Paul and Barry, who are from Rotherham, I think, or something like that. And they are somehow in some situation. Some episodes kind of had some sort of consistency that they lived in a place, but invariably they were on their kind of bicycle car and they would go and start a new job. And that was the general gist of most episodes. And during them starting this new job, things would invariably go wrong. It was a bit of a farce thinking about it. Things would invariably go wrong. The tall one was bossy. The short one was a bit hopeless.
There was lots of like hitting each other with planks and that sort of thing.
Lots of that. There'd be
and
one.
Was it custard or something? There was some kind of something they would always get covered in. Or am I mixing programs?
Yeah, no, there would be cream
or porridge
pies or whatever. That sort of thing. They'd always get covered in. But it was hilarious. And it was very funny. And it was their back and forth between them. Whenever they were carrying something, it's to me, to you, to me, to you, to me, to you.
That's the thing. They have gifted that to the English language, haven't they? Long after they've died, people will be moving house, going to me, to you, and they won't know why.
They won't know why. Nobody will know.
I think for me, it was the way they behaved so childishly. I mean, not kind of like puerile, but just like children, and yet were so clearly ancient, creaky old men. Even then, I know they one of them's still alive now, so they can't have been that old back then. But there was just something very odd.
They certainly haven't. Well, yes, they didn't age, did they? That was the other thing. They appeared to always be around 50.
Yes, exactly. They were around 50, and it was just a bit strange, the whole thing. And I did always find TV programs for kids that involved people being liberally covered in gooey substances, which seemed to be a kind of a recurring theme. Kids wanted to see people covered in gunge. I didn't want to see people covered in gunge. It made me feel ugh.
There was programs though where they had gunge tanks, and I think they had families compete, and the family that lost had to elect one person, and they'd be dunked into a tank of gunge, or it'd be poured all over. I was like, I'm not even sure what the chemical was that they were being poured over. Some sort of.
I do wonder what there was, because one of them was called "Get Your Own Back." Now that was good.
That was the program. That is exactly what I'm talking about. And I think was it parents versus children or something, wasn't it?
It was usually stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I'd having just railed against gunge, that was actually pretty great. And they had the two. The thing was, it was like two kids playing the game, and it was like a quiz show, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And above them, on a sort of ratchet system, on a slope, sitting on a chair at the top of the slope, there would be the person they wanted to get their own back on, who was
you remember far
a
more
parent,
of this than I do. Yes,
or a teacher, or an uncle, or a football coach.
And it was always
somebody
something like, I kicked a football and broke a window, and they, took away my Barbie doll or something. It was something so ridiculously.
It was always like, they don't let me eat sweets whenever I want, or like whatever. It was never. It wasn't Jeremy Kyle. It was like
the child audience was get him,
yeah. We want to see it, and
Jim, come on, do it, yeah.
Get him now. Like a horde of little miniature rioters. And every time they answered a question correctly, they'd go ka-chunka, another step up the slope, until eventually one of them would answer enough correct questions, and the parent would shoot down the slide and into the thing of gunge. But yes, what was it? What was the gunge? It was clearly concocted to look as unpleasant as possible, but it can't have been anything too awful.
Well, it was also sort of toxic green, wasn't it? Designed to look like some sort of chemical waste that had just been
had
donated.
Like swirling spotlights on it to make it look extra weird.
Oh, they did. Yeah,
that was fun.
It was probably custard. Or something along those lines, just corn
and it was
starch.
Dave, what's his face? What was he called? Who was on it? Hang on, Get Your Own Back. Dave.
All the best episodes we've ever done have involved us frantically Googling.
Dave Benson Phillips. Dave Benson Phillips is flipping brilliant. He was excellent. Liked him a lot. Anyway, yes, Get Your Own Back. That was good fun. I liked it. But Chucklevision freaked me out. I didn't like it at all.
You weren't a fan of Chucklevision. Yeah, as I was saying, there were three brothers in Chucklevision, because the angry manager, who invariably was the same person, or played by the same person, is also one of the brothers.
What? It doesn't look anything like them.
Well, he does actually, if you see them just in real life. All Chuckle brothers. What happens if you type brothers?
Here again, ladies and gentlemen, we Google things for your pleasure.
There are 4 of them.
Imagine in your mind a small boy sitting in his room Googling pictures of the Chuckle Brothers, and you shall have what's going on right now.
Okay, there are 4. There are 4 Chuckle Brothers.
There are 4. They're growing.
There's more
reproducing
of them every day.
They're like amoebas. They split to the more of them. Chuckle Brothers. Chuckle. Oh, and that was the theme tune, wasn't it? Chucklevision.
Yeah.
Chucklevision. I did like their car. Their car was cool. I like their car. They're like, basically, it was one of those things you rent in European cities as a tourist.
That's exactly what it is.
To cycle about in, like a tuk-tuk sort of situation, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. That's exactly what it. I think it had 4 wheels. And it was pedal.
But again, that's the thing. All across children's television in general that I often found is there is a sort of trippy element to kids' TV, which I don't actually, as a child, remember liking very much. I would sort of get confused by it, and it would sort of leave me feeling a bit on edge.
The slight lack of reality.
Yeah, the fact that it was just never explained, the fact that these men drove around in a pedal car, it sort of leaves a slightly odd taste in your mouth, a slightly kind of, but why? Why is their world so weird? And it used to kind of just
there's a slight answer
in my brain
to that, which I think I understood as a child, which is that a child can't imagine owning their own car because they're a child, but they can imagine owning a car that's actually a bicycle.
Mm.
And maybe it was just that it's more like a bicycle than a car. Kids be like,
Maybe.
I want a car that's actually a bicycle because I can ride a bicycle because I'm a child. I don't know.
I did once on that line. It's not really television, but there was a brilliant series of comics called Earl Woolley, which is still going on, I think, which is a Scottish series of comics about a boy and his friends. Classic kind of the Beano style comic, and in it he was always making himself and his friends go-karts.
Right.
They were very sort of. I think the comics originated in the 40s or the 50s or something. Back when small boys were just turned out of the house with a hammer and told not to come back until the pudding was ready, kind of thing.
Yes.
And he was always just finding wooden boxes and planks and then turning them into go-karts. And I so wanted one of those. And the thing was, well, he was always just driving around town in his go-kart, and it never even occurred to me that you would need a hill to make a go-kart go.
Yes, exactly.
He was just
or
pootling
just
around.
a very loyal companion.
Exactly, yeah. And
push.
oh man, that was my dream. You see kids that had them. I mean, you could get the ones that had pedals, which would although because you were sitting down and your pedals were a long way in front of you, you had no inertia control whatsoever. So if you weren't going either down a hill or a very flat area, you'd be absolutely ruined.
Mm-hmm.
But
Anyway,
that's not television.
And as a man now who owns a car, do you feel like you're getting your go-kart driving around town experience?
Yeah, there's definitely an element of that. I mean, I would still take a go-kart if someone was like, "Do you want a go-kart?" But
or maybe we'll build one next time we come. We've made sticks. I think the next
sticks, go-karts, very much the same.
The next thing we should do is build a go-kart.
We should. I would be very up for building a go-kart.
As soon as
then maybe we could follow this podcast up with our own TV show about go-karting.
Yes. Yes, let's do that. Excellent.
I see the spark of a project in your eyes. The other thing about television, though, of course, as a child, that we've not really touched on yet, was because we've sort of so far been talking about things that our parents put on for us. Like I say, with the Radio Times, and they'd be like, Walking with Dinosaurs, Chucklevision. I'm not sure my parents were particularly keen on Chucklevision, but it was back in the dim and distant days of CBBC and CITV, where it was all that was on the telly. And
before the days of CBBS.
That's right, and you had to, the parents had to inform you it was on and then switch it on, because at that point I was still too young to know how to turn the television on by myself. So, but when we grew up slightly into the early noughties section of the late 90s and early noughties, Sky came along, and we got Sky. We got the basic package of Sky, and at which point my sister and I became the masters of our own viewing, and we got access to channels like Boomerang and Nickelodeon and the Disney Channel.
Oh, this is completely outside of my experience. We never had anything like that.
Well, I'd be interested to see whether you had the same core experience here, which is that we then basically had access to American kids TV, and American kids TV, everyone speaks like this. Oh my gosh! And my parents abhorred the squeaky American accents, and my sister and I would sit there and watch hour upon hour upon hour upon hour of like Fairly Odd Parents and that sort of thing, and my parents would walk through, and our TV was in front of the door that took you from the living room to the stairs, so you had to walk past it constantly, and every time they'd walk past it, like, oh, this again, oh, so awful, why'd you watch this? And we'd be like, get out of the way, we can't see the telly. Did you have that? Were your parents ever irritated by what you watched on telly, or did you always watch sensible things they were proud of you for?
We often watched most of our television together when I was little. I say together, they didn't watch the children's programmes with quite so much enthusiasm. But we did move on to evening television, which we watched together. Things like Harry Hill's TV Burp, which is an awful name for a programme, but was possibly the funniest programme we've ever watched. Did you ever watch Harry Hill's TV Burp?
No, because Harry Hill also falls into the category of things my parents find very annoying. So
now he's done some rubbish programs, but this was a roundup of the week's television, where he'd show clips from it, and they would always be, he'd be catching out mistakes in the program or really odd things that people say, and then he'd essentially make a meme out of absolutely everything that was happening.
Back in the day, before
memes were even a thing. And he'd have these segments where two people would be saying something, having a conversation on a television program, and they'd mention two things, two people, two items, whatever it was. And it was like something in the program. He would say, I think it's about time we had some sausages. And then Harry would pause the clip and he'd look to the camera and he'd go, well, I like time and I like sausages. But which is better? There's only one way to find out. Fine! And then he put his hands down on the desk. And in from either side of the studio, through one door would come time itself, and through the other would come a man dressed as a sausage. And then they'd kind of just wrestle, and then it would go to the ad break. And it was the most bizarre thing ever.
Very bizarre.
But he'd always be picking up on puns and stupid things that people said. And my parents and I, we just loved this program. It was just utterly hilarious.
That is one of the joys of it, isn't it? I mean, I know we've already dedicated probably too much of this podcast to this particular thing, but one of the great happy memories of my childhood was the Sunday night Top Gear ritual. That when Top Gear was on, and it was, what was it, 8 o'clock? It was 8 o'clock, wasn't it, on a Sunday night? And for those 10 or 11 weeks or whatever, the weekends were just better because you'd get to Sunday afternoon, and the terrible Sunday afternoon blues would be massively lightened by the fact that at the end of Sunday afternoon there was Top Gear, and
Jessica would start playing. Did you realise you'd marry Jessica?
That's why I married her, because I was like, finally, I can keep Top Gear in my life all the time.
Top Gear every day.
Top Gear every day. Every day I wake up and I look at her and I go,
tonight.
Goes, shut up.
Jessica goes to sleep. Josh has to sleep in the spare bedroom.
But he's happy because he's got Jeremy Clarkson. Yes. It was so brilliant. It was so wonderful, and it was a real family ritual, and we'd all watch it together. But then, of course, the problem with it being last thing on a Sunday was that it would come with the crushing pain that when the credits rolled, there was nothing now between you and school the next day. And on that bombshell, you'd be like, "No, Clarkson, don't send me to school," and then away you would go.
So you were sent to school on a weekly basis by Jeremy Clarkson.
By Jeremy Clarkson, I was. It was a joy. It was, yeah.
So this is a good point about Top Gear that Iona brought up recently, actually, was what was the moment you realised that all of the madness and strange things that was happening in Top Gear, and actually you realised, wait a minute, this isn't a car show. This is a scripted comedy show. When did that happen?
This is where we differ, because I don't really care about cars, and I never watched it for the cars, and if you mean when did I realise that it wasn't real, or that it was all heavily scripted, I don't think there's a particular moment where I had the scales fall from my eyes. But there were. I do remember towards the end of the Clarkson Top Gear years, there were times when they would, particularly I remember the India special, where they kind of focused much more heavily than they had previously on the kind of scripted sections of them cocking about and messing things up and sort of embarrassing themselves in front of people. That was so obviously staged, them setting fire to things and that sort of.
But were they obviously staged because you actually just reached an age where you were noticing these things?
Well, no. I was going to say what did it for me was that I remember my parents wanted to turn it off, which was sacrilege, because it was like, it's Top Gear, we have to love it, and I remember them being like, this just isn't funny, and I was like, I was determined that it would be. So as far as I was concerned, it was, but that was a moment for me when I kind of realised that, there was a degree of artifice. But I know there's a good story about Iona suddenly realising, isn't there?
Iona, there was an excellent episode that they did where they were trying. It was winter when they filmed this episode, and they were complaining about the fact that in Britain, every winter, the fact that it's winter is a shock to everyone who lives in Britain, and all of our airports shut down and all of our roads through our cities are closed and everyone falls over all the time, which actually links nicely to what we said about Norway last episode. But they, in this episode, decided to build a gritter, which isn't the most exciting sentence in the world, but they said...
Was it a snowplow they decided to build?
Yeah, a snowplow gritting machine, because snowplows were so expensive, they thought there's got to be a cheaper way to do it. And their brilliant plan was combine harvesters are only used for a couple of weeks a year to harvest a crop. And then they are these colossal great big machines that go back into a shed and don't get used until summer comes around again, it's time to harvest. So their brilliant plan was, let's put a snowplow on the front of a combine harvester and then drive, I think it was through Norway or somewhere.
It was Norway, yeah.
And clear some roads to prove the concept. And during this episode, they add several bits to this combine harvester to make it suitable for the job. Snowplow on the front. They turn the grain dispensing arm into a gritter, which grits all the road. And then they attach a flamethrower to the back of it because Jeremy Clarkson. And during the course of them clearing this road through this small village, they set fire to a man. And at this point, Iona tells me that her her focus on this program being reality was lost, and she goes, "Wait a minute, they've set fire to a man. They can't set fire to a man. Oh no, he must have known he must have known he was about to be set on fire. That's why he's nonchalantly walking away whilst also on fire."
Yes, exactly. He must have a fireproof suit on, and
this series of thoughts suddenly clicked into young Iona's head of, yes, exactly. He must have been paid. He must have known this was happening. He must be wearing a suit. Wait, he's on the team. Wait, everyone knew this was happening. Wait, the whole thing was known was happening. It's scripted. Oh,
this village was going to be destroyed anyway. They smashed the windows on purpose. Exactly.
It's not even real snow. What? Yeah. Jeremy Clarkson's head is CGI for this episode.
On that sort of, it makes you imagine things that could be real but that aren't. One of my favourite kind of sources of daydreams. Oh, when you were bored in school, looking out the window, and one of those TV shows that had the
yes, I think it's about time you mentioned this one.
Exactly. Core ideas that was just so brilliant and it stuck with you was Bernard's Watch.
Such a good episode.
So good, and program.
And, well, it had many good episodes.
It did. My one I remember. So anyway, the core thing of Bernard's Watch was he had a pocket watch that stopped time and had adventures. But
it didn't just stop time; it stopped time for everyone apart from him.
Yes, yeah. Well,
it stopped time.
That's what I always used to think. I always thought, what happens if he presses the button, and it also affects him? Does that mean the world's just ended?
Well, we'd never know.
It's the apocalypse watch, isn't it? Like,
time
if there's not anyone to unclick it, then he's ended the universe.
Does light cease to travel? Yes, if you go into the physics of Bernard's Watch, it falls apart rather quickly.
It doesn't work. Yes, because the photons in the air would stop moving. And,
he'd be blind throughout the experience.
He'd be blind
because there'd be no light entering his eyes, apart from the lights that he moves his own face onto it, but would then have to move towards the photons at the speed of light in order to have them affect his eyes in the normal way. Yeah, there's a lot of issues. There is. With Bernard's Watch.
And the relative speed that he's moving through everything else means that he would cut himself on a mug.
Yes, exactly. and would the temperature of the universe, just instantly drop to absolute zero as all electrons cease to move, all atoms cease to vibrate, everything just stops?
This has become the science episode, hasn't it?
This is a good episode.
But anyway, the point is, if you ignore all of the facts that it's not actually possible to stop time, it was brilliant. And
maybe it was scripted as well. I hadn't even considered that.
Oh no, you mean it wasn't a documentary?
Wait, what?
I remember there was an episode where he went and visited, visited his gran in an old people's home, and then a woman next to him started having a heart attack, and he was just like, "Don't worry." Bipped his watch, wheeled her armchair to the hospital, unbipped his watch, and the nurse, who sees a woman in a chair and a boy appear in front of her.
Yes, it's like
bam, and she's just like, "Oh, hello," and Bernard goes, "She's having a heart attack."
Appears to be having a heart attack.
Exactly, and they take her in and fix her, and everything's fine. But I also remember there was an episode where, horror of horrors, his watch got smashed. It was in his dad's. It was in his coat pocket, and his coat got caught in the. You see how traumatic this was? I can still remember it. In his coat pocket, coat got caught in the boot of the car, and his dad closed the boot of the car and smashed the watch. And it was just like, oh my god!
The program
at that point became
Bernard.
Bernard's Bernard.
And good what? Bernard's. It's just Bernard.
Bernard.
It's
a funny name, isn't it? And he took it to a watch repairman, and the watch repairman opened the back of the watch to fix the clockwork, and there wasn't any clockwork inside. What was inside was a rainbow.
Sorry,
rainbow.
Was there?
A rainbow.
I don't remember watching this episode.
A rainbow. There was. And
Did he fix
it
the
was just
rainbow?
glorious. I can't actually remember how that episode ended. He must have done, otherwise I would have remembered the fact
In
watch
fact, that
stayed
was the
broken
last
forever.
episode of Berners Watch. That they never
That was
made
it.
any more.
The
It wasn't
Watchman
actually a
said-
prop. It was a real item that they then destroyed during filming. The guy playing the dad closes the boot and he's like, "Oh no, I've just done myself out of a job."
That's my career ended, along with the watch.
Season.
I also
4,
remember he
Bernard.
could bring other people with him into the stop time world. If he was holding their hand when he clicked the watch, then they would come with him.
But he
So I
wouldn't
don't
bring
know
the
how that
ground
works.
with him,
No.
even though he's touching that.
The grass he was standing on still waving.
Yes, there's one bit of
It's
grass.
creepy.
Waving in what? There's no wind. Unless he's bringing...
Oh,
Is there a spherical globe of air around him into which you can stand, and you take that bit with you in time?
that's another thing. He'd have to keep moving because he'd just breathe the air that was around him, and then no more would replace it.
He'd asphyxiate very, very quickly.
So dark.
There are several problems with it.
Hang on a minute. This isn't you speaking. This is our guest star, the Abyss, speaking, isn't it?
Abyss. It's actually Brian Cox, who's amazing.
If you stop time,
If you would
it's
stop
soon
time
asphyxiate.
itself, you'd understand that that's why we're here. And wow, it's all amazing.
You've got to say everything as though you're smiling.
You
There's no
gotta-
reason to smile.
I'm like 58 years old, but for some reason when I wear this shirt with this haircut, I look 23, and nobody knows why. It's amazing.
Yes. Art Attack.
Art Attack was a brilliant program, starring another. Moving on from Brian Cox, starring another musical talent who turned to television, Neil Buchanan.
Yes. Of Marseille, the Nwabum band that never made it to the charts.
No, but he did very well as a children's television presenter.
He did, which should have happened to other heavy metal stars. I think, Gene Simmons does Art Attack would be quite fun to watch, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Alice Cooper teaches you how to sew on a button. I'd watch that.
While on fire with a python round his neck.
Yeah. So, and then you do a
I'd watch that.
backstitch in order to hold it
I
in
mean,
properly.
Alice Cooper is now a born-again Christian golf player, so you're not so far off the mark.
A born-again Christian golf player.
Yeah, he is both of those things, a born-again Christian and a golf player.
He's a
He's
born
written
again,
a book about...
and he plays
how-
Christian golf.
Exactly. He's written a book about how golf saved him from his alcoholism. Like, basically, he used golf to fill the... to fill the gulf.
Do you mean he used tea?
Ah, bum, bum, bum. And I don't think the Christianity came with the golf, but
It wasn't Christian golf. It was golf.
it was golf
It was golf. It
played
was
by a Christian.
God golf.
God golf.
God golf to
exactly.
Philo. God golf.
Exactly. Yeah, no, but Art Attack was brilliant. My main sort of memory of Art Attack was basically that it was really brilliant at teaching you about disappointment. Because you would see him go, it's very easy. All you do is you get a yogurt pot. There was a yogurt pot involved, wasn't
Yeah, always a yogurt pot.
there? And then, here you can see we've created the Mona Lisa. And you'd be like, oh, it's great. I'll get my yogurt pot and make the Mona Lisa.
He wouldn't just do
Well,
that.
you get
Though.
your
He'd
yogurt
go,
pot.
he'd go, and you can create the Mona Lisa. And you go, oh, great. This is perfectly plausible. But then he'd go, and I've also done, and then he'd walk across the studio slightly, and there'd be a Mona Lisa that was 25 feet long and 43 feet wide. And he'd be like, made out of dustbins and a car and just large items that he'd found to create this huge piece of artwork.
When you asked your parents if you could use the dustbin to make the Mona Lisa, they were like, no.
Yes, and can I have a helicopter so we can actually view my piece of art that I've created? Because I don't have
Oh,
a
that's
studio.
right. No, it wasn't across the studio. He would go on location, wouldn't it? He'd go to like a football field or something, and you'd see him
Unravel
close
a
up.
tarpaulin.
Yeah, and
Yes, exactly.
it would pull out, and it would be a what's the word we're looking for? Not a mosaic, not a tapestry.
A collage.
Collage.
Mm.
A collage. That's it. Of football boots and such like. Yeah, but my
Yes,
memory.
no,
the
it
one
was
that
always related to whatever the picture was. It was made of items related to the picture. You're absolutely right.
exactly, yeah.
But then it would
Yeah.
come to life.
And run away.
It did. I'm fairly sure several of them did run away.
I think they animated them sometimes, didn't they? Yeah.
They did, yeah.
But I remember going. The one that really stuck with me was the one that, because they were so often that you made it sound easy, but even as a kid you could kind of tell that sounds like a lot of effort. But there was one that I really wanted to do where he'd got like a pebble from his back garden and had sort of, done a face on it, and it looked really, it looked really good. I thought, I'll do that. And I remember going out into the back garden, finding a suitably sort of round and sort of vaguely head-shaped pebble, and sitting down with a felt tip and trying to draw on it, and being utterly incapable of, because a felt tip doesn't draw on stones.
Not so well, no.
And it was just one of those moments where you had big plans, and it was like, this is what we're going to do this afternoon, and it was going to look great, and then you sit there and you go, oh.
I seem to remember pretty much everything was covered in papier-mâché and then painted in thick layers of paint.
Thick layers.
And he'd always have this great big brush and paint it. And he'd be like, how did you get that detail with that brush? Because it would cut to the finished item. And he'd be like, there's a disconnect here. Something, you were flapping around yogurt pots and bits of paper, and now you have a fully working dinosaur. Where did this come from?
You've used an industrial strength drill somewhere in the middle here.
I
enjoyed playing with papier-mâché at school. That was great fun. When you were told to make something out of papier-mâché. It was such a great opportunity to just make a mess. Mm-hmm. It was so great.
As a teacher now, I have no idea how lessons of papier-mâché ever happened, because surely more of the lessons got to be tidying up than actually doing the papier-mâché.
But that was what classroom assistants were for, wasn't it? They would scoot round after you with a mop and a bucket and make the place nice again.
And they just kind of on a shovel to get most of the papier-mâché off the floor and into the bin.
It is again another tangent, but can you remember the names of your school classroom assistants? Because I can.
No, I don't remember my having school classroom assistants. That was such a feature in the world. No, we didn't seem to have many.
We had Mrs. Preston and Mrs. Bartram. Mrs. Preston was
other classroom assistants are available.
Other classroom, yeah. She was quite scary. She was a bit strict. And Mrs. Bartram was about 96 and smelt of talc. And she was a bit nicer.
Okay.
She was a bit more like your gran, but you didn't cross Mrs. Preston. She'd get cross with you. But yeah, they're a big part of school. The classroom assistants.
The classroom assistants would get cross with you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
did they often get cross with you in particular?
Well, no, but you just aware of the ones who would lay down the law. I mean, I was an incredibly good boy, terrified of being in trouble, so I didn't rebel very much. But
that's true.
But
you were aware of the underlying fury.
Now we've done an hour, and what we haven't done, my dear sir, is we haven't done a Foley.
No, we haven't, have we?
We need a Foley. I think you should go and get something from your garage. We can edit.
Oh, excellent suggestion. Good news. New drills have arrived.
Your new drills have arrived. Go and get them.
Menu drills have arrived.
Menu drills. All right, I'll just play some elevator music.
Bear with.
I'm
walking away. I'm back in the door. The door is closing.
Goodness, that's a large box.
And let me get back into the zone. I'm in the zone. In front of my colleague on screen there, I have this
big box. It says Makita.
It says Makita, which I'm fairly clearly a Mexican brand.
Can you tip the screen down at all so I can see?
Well, I was going to lift them out of the box.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Do you think I can still be heard? Let's move the microphone.
I can hear you. Yeah. Yes,
that's true.
I'm not listening to the microphone.
In the box is there are two drills, two different types of drill. One is your classic drill things into walls, etc. The other is designed especially for putting in screws. This is the one designed especially for putting in screws.
Oh.
And it has excellent bright light.
Oh, it's got a light. Look at that. Whoa.
Here we go. The battery disconnect. And then that's a good one.
Ka-chunk.
Even bigger than that is the combi drill. Which is even more magical. Here's the and the battery. Oh.
It's got two lights, that one. Amazing.
It's got twin headlights, exactly. You can
That's
illuminate
so utterly...
everything and then
I love it.
And then put a screw
Glorious.
into that hole. Which is, I'm very happy about that. The best thing I might have to plug something in to do this, is I need to show you what the battery charger can do. Here's the battery charger. I'm going to put the battery on, and it should make a beep. There's a beep. Now, if I'm very quick, I'll take the battery out, put it back in. It makes a long beep. If I do it again. And one more. How cool is that? One more. And the last one. If you wait for this one to finish, see if you can guess the tune. It's not going to finish because the battery won't be flat. Right. Anyway, you can change the sound the battery charger makes when the battery is charged.
That is so pointless. I love it.
Isn't that inexplicably brilliant?
Very good. Well, I think we should sum up television in the late 90s and early noughties.
I think we've managed to remain very much on topic there.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of our most topic-focused episodes that we've ever done.
I mean, there was a large section in the middle where we explained gravity
Newtonian physics
and how orbits work. But I think that's the bit we should definitely keep. Yes, television formed a big part, but not a massive part of my childhood. And the best memories I had from it were watching it with other people, like my parents, I think, and then rewatching it on video.
Yes, I think that's fair to say. I think the watching it together was great, and I think that there was just certain television shows that really sparked your imagination and made you think in different ways, and filled you with wonder. I think that's the word we're looking for here. There was wonder about it, and I think that's probably still the case today. It's just younger kids watch different TV. But that's the glory of it.
Exactly.
It fills your mind with new possibilities.
When Walking with Dinosaurs came out, I wanted to be a paleontologist, aged 4 or however old I was. And I knew the word, and I knew what I wanted to do because I knew what the job entailed because I'd watched these fantastic programs about it.
Yes, and when Bernard's Watch came out, I wanted to be a time traveller, and I still to this day, it's my vision and dream.
Forget the physics. I want to be a time traveller.
Yeah. Or no, not even a time traveller, just a time interrupter.
But you'd get old. That's the only other problem with Bernard's Watch. You would age far faster than everyone else.
Oh my gosh, you would. Oh, the darkness, the abyss has returned. On that note, finish with an abyss.
With an abyss. Abyss, 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 abyss.
Good night, children.